And welcome back. Phil, local businesses in Baltimore's Fells Point, mostly retailers, say they are fed up with the prostitution, public urination, and general lack of police enforcement in their neighborhoods. And they are threatening to boycott paying taxes until there is more police and better services. Why are the police refusing to do their jobs?
Well, you could look at a variety of things. First of all, the fact that just about any time in this country when a police officer does their job, there's immediate social media and traditional media and everybody backlash going for them. That's number one. Number two, Baltimore City continues to be led by the most incompetent leadership from the top down. So when knowing that you're going to be the target of ire, and you have leadership that's not going to stand up for you, why would you go out and put yourself at risk, even if that's your job, in order to do these things when you know what the response is going to be? But I got to tell you, I'm happy. I love seeing that
with the public coming out and opposing and saying we want more policing. Isn't that a good sign?
That's absolutely a good sign, and I wish that there were taxpayers all across the country who would rise up and do the exact same thing to put the politicians on notice that the gravy train won't roll forever.
So Mike, in contrast to the question that I just asked Phil, there's another report of a disturbing video circulating over a confrontation on the Ocean City boardwalk between police officers and a group of young black youths that resulted in arrests for vaping in what appears to be an undesignated area. Now, in the opinion section of the Baltimore Sun, Dan Roderick wrote and stated that the action of the police was entirely an abuse of their force and over-policing. So the question is, what is the police to do if they're criticized as they are in Fells Point for not policing, and they're being criticized in Ocean City for policing? What are they to do?
Well, I think the example in Ocean City, and again, to Phil's point earlier, not knowing what the General Assembly was thinking, I only saw a snippet of the video, but the part of the video that I saw seemed to be the police overstepping their bounds with one of the police officers kneeling and kneeing one of the individuals in the head 5 or 6 times, which didn't make a whole lot of sense. But I think one of the things that we've really got to do is, what is the act of policing? You said this in the beginning, and I think part of the act of policing has to be training our officers how to diffuse a situation and not necessarily always going in with force. And you're beginning to see this now in smaller and smaller jurisdictions where we know that there's less and less training, and they don't know what else to do. And it becomes clear that they don't know what tools to use, and they don't have the tools to use, and they haven't been trained appropriately. And so how do they diffuse a situation? And they fall back on, unfortunately, a use of force. And we've got to get past that. I think there's a critical role for police in our society, but we also have to be able to teach police how to do that in a way that doesn't require them beating up people.
But is there another responsibility here? Isn't there a responsibility of the public to respect police authority? Because sometimes these confrontations seem to take place when there is a group that wants to challenge the police on whether it's on smoking in an area where they're not to be smoking, or congregating in an area where they're not where they shouldn't. I mean, isn't that a responsibility of the citizenry as all? Phil.
But Casey, what you're speaking to isn't an issue of the citizenry. It's actually an issue of the politicians, and that's really where this issue comes from. The police enforce the politicians' laws. The politicians in a lot of these places make a lot of laws and a lot of rules, most of which really, really get into what personal behavior is. If you notice, the majority of these problems happen in big, blue, liberal jurisdictions where the government is telling you what to do. And therefore, the police do their job by enforcing what the politicians say. Is it necessary? Let me ask you a question.
I don't think it's just liberal big blue cities and states. I mean, Ocean City has an anti-vaping
not strictly, but think about it. Is it necessary to pull me over for going 40 and 35? Why is it really 35? You ask those questions. Why is it that someone's standing there and they're in a no vaping zone, but then there's a vaping zone down the street? That's really where the problem comes from, not with the police.
Okay, then we'll do away with all laws.
I'm not saying do away with all laws, but you have to be circumspect in, number one, why are we passing these laws? And number two, what is the impact of it going to be? And when you think about it in that way, as opposed to, well, I don't like this, therefore there ought to be a law, then you actually get laws that make sense, and the police don't have to do these things where they're put in harm's way of, say, bothering somebody for going 40 to 35.
All right, well, you're gonna have the last word on that, because